let's talk about the catalyst for the movie. Um, it's pretty well reported that things didn't go well in your relationships. Tell us about sort of the catalyst.
It's true.
Well,
Yeah.
some people may not know
Yeah.
that this movie is sort of true. Talk about what was happening in your life and how this served as a catalyst for the script.
Well, I left out the part that one of the reasons why I went to grad school was over a girl. Because, I dated a girl in New York. That didn't go so good. I was bummed. And New York lost its appeal. So I ended up moving to London. And like the day I got there, I met another girl. And I was like, yes, this is why I'm here. This is... Figured it all out. And that didn't work either. So the exact same thing. Somehow I managed to do this movie to myself twice, which is amazing. Having gone through that situation and being very histrionic and dramatic as I am, I was like, emailing Weber back he's still in New York, and just being like, can you believe this story and whatever else? And he's like, that's a scene. We got to do something with that. And it just turned into like this, me whining about this girl turned into this sort of movie in a way. It's true.
So, the lesson, I guess, is someone breaks your heart, write a hit movie.
Well, you certainly don't see it like that. It's more of a, you're writing it down to make yourself feel better in a way. Like, the world doesn't make sense, but this script makes sense, and I'm the hero in it. So that's good. And it was one of those things where, like, I never expected it to be read. Really just wanted to write something down to, like, I didn't have anything else to do, and I was thinking about this a lot. And I just had this idea of how to tell the story, and then it was like, okay, maybe someone else might be interested in that, like, because that at least is interesting. I know that my situation is not interesting to anyone else, but the way we tell the story could be interesting. And it took a really long time to actually, like, get it on paper the way I would want someone else to look at it. And even when I was proud of it, I still was too embarrassed to show it to anyone. So that was another 6 months of staying in my computer.
So that's good advice for screenwriters, is write your stuff and then don't show it to anybody.
Until it's really, you have no other options.
That's fantastic. So heart gets broken. Let's take a look at, some people, go into hiding, they get depressed, they withdraw.
I did all those things.
And you wrote a script. Let's take a look at your homage to your girlfriend.
Gonna show the whole movie?
Start at the beginning. This is just a short clip.
That was in the script.
So who is Jenny Beckman, and what was her reaction to seeing this script in this movie?
Well, she said it's an amalgam of two people, and when things were moving with the project, I did have to show it to them because Fox Legal doesn't like lawsuits, and so I had them read the script. And we were not in touch. Don't get that. Yeah, we weren't at all. But they were very nice, and they read it, and they liked it, and they said very interesting. Probably not how they saw it, but that was fine. And one of them related very much to the Tom character, which was infuriating to me. And but they were good, and they said no problem. And I don't know if they ever saw the movie, to be honest with you, because at least with the England girl, we were Facebook friends up until the release of the movie overseas, and then the day it came out, I was defriended on Facebook. So I'm assuming that that's connected somehow, but I don't know.
Coincidence? I think not.
Yeah.
And speaking of Facebook, I mean, you did so many interesting, or the studio did so many interesting marketing plays on this thing. Did they set up a Facebook page for Jenny Beckman?
Well, maybe they did, and maybe we did.
Maybe someone did. Okay, someone did. And what happened with that?
Well, it might be a real person, actually. She's on Facebook.
She's on Facebook.
Yeah.
And what are people writing on her wall?
Well, first they have to, in order to write on the wall, she has to accept them as friends. And I don't know who's doing that, because if I was in charge, I would be saying no to most of these people, because there's a lot of people who are like in defense of her. And I guess that's okay now, but at the time it was like, what? That can't be. No way.
So people write what they think of the movie and what they think of her, and
I haven't looked at it.
You
It's
haven't.
not my place. I have to keep my distance.
all right. Well, let's talk about the movie itself. What is the movie about, and why is this not a love story?
Well, I think it's not a love story because love stories are about two people, and this is about one person. It's very, very clear that everything about this is this guy's story. It's his arc we're watching, and it's his perspective, and so stuff is warped through his kind of, his brain. And, some of the things that I read where people were saying that, it wasn't dual represented. It wasn't balanced at all. That's the point. That's very much the point that if we told this through her perspective, you would see like a completely different movie, which would be an interesting exercise, because I think that's what makes this interesting. We're not talking about big themes here. This is not life and death stuff. This is just how somebody's remembering a romance. We had a scene once where she stops the movie, and she's like, sort of, that is not what happened. Let me tell you what happened, because he's totally blown this out of proportion. And we decided we can't use it. It was kind of a neat scene, but we couldn't do it because we were married to this idea from the beginning that the logic of the movie is he's telling the story and it's all his perspective, and you could not break from that.
And let's talk about how it was different in a lot of ways. The structure, it's not chronological. It jumps back and forth. You used a bunch of different techniques. Talk about that in the script writing process. Those were techniques that were written right into the story by you.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's sort of somebody telling the story who has watched way too many movies and who has read too many books and listened to too many sad songs. And that was kind of me. And so, like, part of the exercise was like, why was I so blindsided by this dumping? Why did I think that this was happening? And if I believed in this idea of like true love and like the one and all these things, then like, well, now what? I am effed because that person just kicked me to the curb. And so I was trying to figure out why did I believe all these things and where do they come from? And of course it was, all of the pop culture influences that I've absorbed and was very involved in and loved. And so in thinking about that, it was kind of like, let's write this as if, it was somebody raging against all of these things that are considered, conventions of romance. And so that we just use everything. We've got a narrator that makes it sort of storybooky, and we've got, split screens and cartoons and music sequences and all that stuff. Because sort of, I hate to say it, but like I often think about the world in that kind of way sometimes. So.
And so, yeah, you mentioned some of the conventions that you use. Well, not the conventions, some of the techniques that you use that did not follow traditional structure and convention. Let's talk about the dance scene. What's your vision for that, and can you explain it to us? Everyone remembers the dance scene, right? Hall & Oates.
It's it would actually be in another movie. It would be a sex scene. There would be sex, and and so we were like, well, let's go for how that feels. And when you're pining for somebody for a really long time, and then you finally are with them, the next day is the greatest day of your life. And we wrote, greatest morning ever. And it's literally, he walks down the street and crazy things are going on, and everybody's, there's like a giant parade of celebration for the fact that he has finally achieved his goal of getting this girl. I apologize for the band we chose, but
we'll talk about that in a second. Let's take a look at it. Take us to day 95.
What I want
The next scene's fun.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. So I remember seeing this at the premiere, and my only criticism of the film was
Yeah, you didn't like the band.
I didn't like the band.
Yeah.
I said, obviously USC's band was not available, but he gave me a perfectly good explanation of why it had to be the Baby Blue. Talk about that.
Well, that was all Mark's thing. I mean, initially, and in the script, and on like a week up until filming, we had Hall & Oates themselves in that scene, like walking down next to him, like cheering him on. And for some reason, they thought we were making fun of them and like pulled out at the last second, which we were totally not making fun of them. It's an awesome song. But we needed a replacement, and Mark was like, we're going to go get like a band, and they went with UCLA because of the colors. This is, if you watch the movie, there's the only blue in any scene is like Zoe's eyes for Tom, and then when she's not on screen, there's no blue anywhere, except in this scene, which is nothing but blue. There's a blue overload because it's sort of like his dream fantasy, that kind of thing. So there's a reason for lots of things. Nothing happens by accident.
I accept your apology.
I do apologize.
And so tell us about the scene that didn't get in the movie that was the worst day ever.
Yeah, there's an opposite of this. It's on the DVD now, and we never could crack it, but it was basically, on the page, it was really funny. I mean, the cartoon bird takes a cartoon shit on him, and like everything bad in the world happens, and when he looks in the window, like he sees, like Jabba the Hutt or something. Like this is the opposite kind of moment, but it never really crackled in the same way, so we didn't end up using it.
So go to the director's cut. Well, that scene and the song sort of takes us to the music and why it's so important to the movie. Talk about how important it was to you and how integral to the story, and how specific you were in writing these scenes and writing this music.
I'm a dork, and this is like movies and music. It's sort of like my favorite things. And when we were writing about a relationship, I mean, I feel like I've said this before. Like every relationship in the world that you all have has a soundtrack, and you have your song that you first dance to, and you have all the, music plays a huge part in this stuff. So it would have been inauthentic to not acknowledge that there's music. So I didn't want to write what you're supposed to do when you write screenplays is not tell the director what songs to use, and you probably won't be able to afford them anyway. But in this particular case, it was very integral to certain moments and certain scenes, and the elevator scene and like all that stuff sort of happened. So I had to I just wanted to make it as authentic as I could, because when you're sitting around with your significant other, you're probably talking about some kind of pop culture thing, or at least all my friends and I are. And so you talk about TV shows, you talk about movies and music and all that stuff. So it was just a way to make it feel lived in. We talked about at the end of the script before we sent it out for anyone to read it, let's do like an appendix. And we would do an appendix, which would be like the concert tickets, that they went to together, and like, pictures and things like that we wanted to do. We ended up, it was probably a hacky idea, but just to make this feel like as real a situation as we could, because it was kind of based on real stuff. And I was like, the realer the better, I always think, so.